Well, hello, and thank you for joining me for another Alex on Tech and iTWireTV interview. I'm joined today by Gustavo Quiroga. He's the General Manager for Mobiquity in APAC. Welcome to the program.
Thank you very much.
Great to have you. Yeah. So, Gus, Mobiquity describes itself as a digital experience service consultancy. So, look, for those who are unaware, what exactly does that mean? And what problems does it help modern businesses solve?
Yeah. Well, I think my daughter describes it best when she says, "My dad builds really cool apps." But I think, But I think for businesses, what it means is that we help organizations build or improve on the digital version of their product and service offerings. Now, how we look at that is that we look at what behaviors people have in the market and how those behaviors are changing, and therefore what sort of experience does an organization need to build to talk to those behaviors in a meaningful and impactful way. So hence we're looking to build products that create those experiences that talk to the change behaviors. Let me put it to you in an example. So 2 years ago, if you imagine going into a Subway to buy a footlong, you buy the footlong and then you might search through your wallet for cash or for a credit card, or you might have gone tap and pay. So you had all these different ways to go and pay, and then you leave. Today, you walk into a Subway and you order a footlong, a barcode comes up, you scan the barcode, and it should automatically detect what sort of payment method you want, and it deducts it from your account and you walk out. Maybe in a year's time, we're going to walk into a Subway, order a footlong, and just leave. And the money comes out of my account, my nominated account somehow. So these behaviors and create expectations from customers of your brand experience, whether it be a bank or a retailer, etc. And so how do you make sure you can keep up with these changes of behavior and therefore the changes of the experience that you provide customers? And how do you make sure you keep access to the right skills in your organization to solve for that? So therefore, from a Mobiquity perspective, the problems I think we're trying to solve are really two. First of all, what we're really trying to say is, how do I create, or what are the differentiated experiences and product offerings that I should build? So as a bank, or what should I build, and what should I differentiate with? And secondly is, how do I cost effectively and continuously innovate on that experience? So how do I keep doing that over and over again? So we solve those two problems.
Now, the Mobiquity site also mentions that you're part of Hexaware. So can you briefly tell us about Hexaware?
Yeah. So think of Hexaware as an umbrella brand, much like Google is to Chrome and to Gmail.
Yeah.
But what Hexaware represents is our focus around innovation of customer experiences through a focus on having the right people and technology in the organization to drive that. Then if you look at what Mobiquity is in the context of Hexaware is, so we're a brand within Hexaware, and we represent a focus on building impactful products that are rooted on an understanding of those changes of behavior and what experiences will help you to differentiate your product offering in the market.
Now, one of the things that Mobiquity talks about is tech debt. So why is this a growing problem, and what is tech debt?
Yeah, so lots of different definitions in the market of what tech debt is. I'm going to give you a customer-centric focused definition of tech debt. And to me, it's the investments in technology that a customer or a client or an organization hasn't made and is therefore slowing them down or impacting their ability to deliver customers the experiences or the products that they actually want. So it's their ability, it's this failure to invest in what you actually need to service and differentiate yourself in the market.
So I was thinking as you were explaining that to me, that tech debt is like a brake on the digital acceleration that we've all been experiencing through COVID, and not having the correct technologies in place because you didn't invest. I mean, again, it's the brake on digital acceleration that nobody wants in the modern era.
Yes, I think that's absolutely right. And it's such a problem because organizations are somewhat hampered. Many CTOs and organizations, they actually know what they need, but they can't always get it. One is because I think there's too much technology in the market. And if you think about the challenge of an organization is you have vendors coming at them, telling them that this is the best technology, this is the best approach, and it becomes very, very confusing. And quite often they make the wrong decision because they're not sold what they actually need. And in part, that's why organizations like us exist, to help people sort of sift through the noise of, well, what do you actually need? I think there's also this challenge around budgets, right? The focus for organizations is the return on investment now, and sometimes tech debt is investing for the things that you need tomorrow. And you only realize it's a problem when you reach that tomorrow, and now you're hooked in to a product or a technology that's really hard to orchestrate out of. And that's really the problem that major banks have, and that's why these plethora of fintechs have emerged, because they don't have tech debt. They're always investing in what's new or what's latest for the future.
Yeah.
I also think that, sorry, just a final point. I also think that there's not enough of a focus on architecture from organisations. So they're bringing in things and they're not putting them in a way or building them in a way that allows them to adapt to future requirements that are coming from changes of behaviours in the customers.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what you said just a moment ago is quite true. Every vendor is trying to, showcase their product and service and solution. And the thing is that you've got this digital transformation. And I think there are examples of companies who have embarked upon that, and then several years later, they haven't quite finished that, and they've got to then transform into the next solution, whatever that next solution is. And you've got all these disparate things. I mean, technology is all about trying to make things simpler for the business, for customers, simpler for everybody. And sometimes, as we were sort of saying, technology makes things more complicated. So I guess the question is, what does digital transformation mean to Mobiquity, and how do you help customers to go through that journey and process in a way that they're just going to go, this is exactly what we need?
Yeah. So I think digital transformation has almost become a buzzword that's been around for a number of years.
Absolutely.
But for Mobiquity, it means this transition away from product and places to experiences and spaces. So digital transformation to me is really about that transition into that view of customer and moving into their world and the way that they consume, in this case, financial services or whatever product or service it is that you are offering as an organization. So its transformation then is the way in which we consume brand offerings, and subsequently it's the challenge for the organization to catch up and keep up with those transformations is where digital transformation is.
And so what are some more examples of the projects that Mobiquity has worked on, such as your ability to eliminate digital friction?
Yeah, I think one of the ones that I'm most proud of, and I just think it's really cool, is this idea of hasala. And the audience that might be listening might know that is, but it comes from an Arabic or a Muslim concept of a savings pot. It's this idea that in communities you might come together to save money for a special event like a wedding. And so the whole community is invested in your financial health and your financial well-being. So how do you bring these community values, community experiences, behaviours into an experience and or a financial offering? One of these, we did one of these for a bank in Bahrain called Ela Bank, where we helped them build the bank from scratch. But one of the most interesting one was actually digitizing that community approach to helping someone save for a special event, which is called Hasala. So that's certainly one that I find, I'm incredibly proud of and find quite fascinating. The other one is, so here in Australia, we're helping actually a couple of insurance companies with the same problem. And it's this idea that, you go and apply for a quote, but it's such a regulated industry that you get bombarded with product disclaimers and product disclosure statements and etc. And it's just not a great experience for customers. So how do you help the organization to still be on the right side of regulatory requirements, but more importantly, give customers a delightful experience? So we've been helping a couple of insurance companies to really streamline that quote process. And the big difference is this. They came at, one of the customers I think about, they came to us and they were looking at the quote funnel and say, well, let's change this button, let's remove that field, let's shorten that text. And my view was like, well, you're looking at it the wrong way, because, maybe you don't even need that page there. Is that actually relevant in the way a customer consumes insurance, in the way they think about purchasing it? So what's the journey that they really want? And let's rebuild the experience based on that journey, not based on have we got the right colors and have we got the right logos or the right size of button. So that's a big one that's really driving transformation in experiences around buying insurance, which some of us reluctantly have to do.
Yeah.
And I think the last one that I wanted to share with you that is really quite fascinating is we're working with a company called Immunify Life. And they're actually an Australian startup organisation who have realised that in some of the third world and sometimes developing countries, there are some real massive community problems such as HIV and or immunisation against basic things such as that we might think basic, such as flu vaccination, etc. But people don't have access to these health services because they don't have access to the information, they live very distant from the health providers themselves, and they don't have the sort of levels of technology penetration that we have, that we're fortunate to have. So we're helping them build a mobile first, because there's quite deep mobile penetration, blockchain driven, cryptocurrency incentivized way of getting people to seek out those health outcomes and share their health information with practitioners, so that they can be then incentivized to take the right preventative and remediative health services for the particular condition. And right now, that first one is HIV, which we're still dealing with in some West African countries. So they're three really very different but really exciting examples of how we, helping transform lives through people and technology.
Yeah, I mean, I was talking before about how companies have been on this digital transformation journey for some time and gone through more than one cycle of this. And we really are at a stage now where it has matured to a degree that, it should be about positive digital disruption, because disruption can be negative, it can be positive. So this should be about positive disruption. And it should be, as you were sort of explaining before, it can be an opportunity for a fundamental rethinking about how you deliver those products and services in a way that, as you said before, is cognizant and appreciative of the customer journey, because happy customers is good for the business. And if making it simpler, then guess what, you're probably going to get more customers and you have happier staff and all the rest. So that's clearly the sort of things that you are enabling companies to, the journey they can go on today.
Yeah, look, if I can just add a point to that.
Please.
We talk about this in terms of these three dimensions of desirability, which is what you're really talking about, viability and feasibility. Too often, we talk to organizations where there are people that they know their business and they may know their industry, but they don't know always how behaviors are changing or have changed. And so we say, before you go out and build this product that seems like a really good idea, like robo-debt from the tax department, why don't we test that against, well, is there an audience of people out there that this is going to create a better outcome for, a better experience? So therefore, how desirable is it? And if we've worked out how desirable is it, well, can it actually be an is it viable, right? So from an organization perspective, can we build something that is actually going to deliver an economic return or is going to create an impact on your metrics such as net promoter score or customer retention or customer acquisition? And finally is, well, can it actually even be built? Are we talking about technologies that are going to be so difficult to be built that you're not going to have the people to support it, or you're going to be getting yourself into a greater tech debt position as well? So I think that's really important to consider in terms of that point.
Yeah. So can you tell us about your EMEA and APAC technology radar?
Yes. Well, look, the technology radar and also the banking radar are two really important pieces of work that capture Mobiquity's experience and know-how in the market globally. The tech radar, what it's trying to do, and it talks to this tech debt piece, it's saying, as we engage across the market, across multiple projects, building a bank, building a payment system, or building a health outcomes solution, what are we seeing are the technologies that you should be investing in because they are delivering the right outcomes in terms of this agility and architectural feasibility and your opportunity to adapt to future changes in behavior. So should I be using AngularJS or React Native or Python from a sort of a software perspective for the audience that understand that aspect? Or should I be buying a low-code, no-code platform or a configurable and customizable platform? What does that mean? Why should I do that? So from a technology perspective, the technology radar looks at that and tries to give you a sense of where we see the market, and therefore, when you're thinking about your next project, what should I build it in and what should I build it with?
Yeah.
The banking radar looks at best practices, and it looks at it in the context of what features, if, for example, if you're thinking about a mobile banking app, what features must you have? Because that's the minimum ground point where the market is, and therefore your customers are expecting. What features would, or product offerings would delight? So your customer go, wow, that's nice. Actually, this personal financial management tool actually gives me an accurate assessment of how much I can afford to spend this month. Fantastic, delightful. Or what about if it's a real differentiator? Actually, this personal financial management tool not only helps me to understand how much I can spend this month, but is helping me to allocate my funds between accounts and connecting me up with a fund deficit source, such as a lending option, to make sure that I can expand my wealth position without actually risking my ability to achieve future payments. Now that's a differentiator. So our banking radar looks at, it's a great tool for financial services organizations that are building our propositions to say, are we building a me too, or are we actually cutting ahead of the curve and creating delightful and differentiated experiences?
So in a nutshell, what else makes Mobiquity different?
So there's a couple of things. I'd like to think that in this, we started the conversation talking about product engineering and experience services. I'd like to think that when we do this, we try and make sure we understand what the brand promise is. So what does Bendigo Bank mean versus what does NAB mean? What does FPOS mean? What does Maya mean? What do these brands mean to their customer? What's the promise? Like when you buy Apple, the promise is it's going to work seamlessly at the flick of two fingers and you won't tolerate anything less. So we like to think that what differentiates us in that respect is that we look to understand the brand promise, and we don't just cut code and build stuff. We actually try to infuse that brand promise. So we build things out and we create experiences that are reflective of that brand promise or the brand tone. And we do that always centered around user experience. So we'll never build something unless we know what's the experience we're trying to create. So don't just ask us to cut code, ask us to try and transform your experiences with, whilst being honest and true to the brand promise that you offer. That's one thing. The other thing I think differentiates us is So the way that we hire talent is we try and bring in people that are very curious and are not afraid to challenge our customers and say, well, why are you doing that and this doesn't make sense? So we empower our teams to do that, and we back them. Sometimes it can get uncomfortable with clients, but we do that very, very deliberately. We create that friction at the customer, so at the organizational level, so we don't have the friction at the user experience level. Better tackle it there at the table than on the glass. Once you're tackling it on the glass, it's too late. You've lost your customer, they've moved to the competition. And I think the other thing is when you engage Mobiquity, we don't give you resources. We don't give you, bums on seats, as they say. What we do is we try and give you a slice of Mobiquity. So we're giving you an engineering team, but we also bring in our UX people, our delivery people to really make sure you understand. We understand where you're heading, and we can derive the maximum value in terms of this experience transformation.
And I'm guessing those last two questions is kind of part of the short version of how you onboard a new customer to learn about their needs and work together on finding the right solution.
Yes, spot on. I think it's absolutely a dovetail into that question, because what we want to do is when we engage a customer, we're going to say, okay, Mr. Customer, here's the whole team. Share your vision. Mm-hmm. Tell us about where you're heading and why. And then, okay, team, challenge the customer. Why did you say that? Why is that important? How is that going to actually make a difference? How are you going to be differentiated? So that everybody, not just, and this is the problem, right? You have organizations, the sales team come in and negotiate a partnership, then they bring in the delivery director, and the delivery guy sort of does the coordination, but the people that are actually doing the work are not at the table. They need to be at the table. They need to be able to challenge and hear it. The QA people, the engineering people, the front end people, the experienced people, everybody needs to know what the customer challenge is and put their view to it. So, that's really, really important in terms of our way, so that we can get to a very clear and consensus point of view of the problem that we're trying to solve.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Gus, can you please, share a little bit about your own history in the world of tech?
Okay, so I think I've been running away from tech debt my whole life, and that probably defines my career history.
Yeah.
Probably this will date me in your audience's eyes, but in '96 I was in Vietnam trying to convince the market that SMS was a really good investment to make, and having all sorts of troubles because who the hell is going to communicate over 160 characters?
Yeah.
Right. Then I came back to Australia, and I was right at the forefront of the .com era, and I was working there helping organizations, or trying to convince organizations that maybe they should offer their products over an e-commerce platform. Maybe services like e-government you should be able to order a bin collection over a website. And so why aren't you investing in technologies that allow you to do that in the future? Then after that, I spent some time in unified messaging, thinking, hey, why do you have to go here for email, there for SMS, there for voice? Why can't it all be together? And trying to solve that tech debt problem that organizations had. Then I moved, unfortunately for me, a little too early into video conferencing. God, I only wish I'd done that in the last 2 years, right? I think I'd be a lot wealthier than I am. But I was certainly there in the early days, chasing this idea that there was a better way cost-effective way to converse with your customers and partners. And then I moved to IBM, really looking at sort of AI, Watson and blockchain and how that was going to transform the industry. Microsoft for cloud, and then finally I made it all my way here to Mobiquity. And I think what's interesting about that journey of just sort of exploring the next frontier of battling tech debt is that now I've landed with a company that says, well, there's too much tech, don't worry about it. Let us do the orchestration of a tech because it's now about ecosystems and platforms, and people don't care about what's under the hood. All they care about is what's on the glass. And what's on the glass is the actual experience that I have in the context of the behavior that I'm realizing, buying, shopping, dining, etc. So that's where I am now, trying to keep customers away from shiny yellow bike syndrome and buying the shiniest toy, but not the most useful one for their customers.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds with your history that everything you worked on, as you said, you were running away from tech debt. All those things have come true. I don't know about collecting my bins when I need it collected, but I can certainly go online and order a replacement bin if mine is broken. And all those online things are just second nature to us now. And even things like Zoom. I mean, a lot of people, I think Zoom started a couple of years ago. Zoom's over a decade old.
Correct. I was selling it. In 2011, 2012.
Yeah, when it first started, yeah. So what's a memory you can share of your first computer?
That's easy. Anybody of my vintage will know would have to be the Commodore 64, right? Yeah. So what I find a real good memory is that, it used to run on tapes, very much like the ones you would put in your cassette recorder.
That's exactly the same tapes, but just different encoding. It was software rather than music.
Correct. And what's fascinating is being the curious guy, I thought, I wonder what happens if I put this in my boombox. And of course, I heard all the squeaking.
You could hear the music.
Right, which sounds like some of the modern music.
Yeah.
And then I thought, well, if the login is at the beginning, what if I could fast forward my tape and get it to start after the login? And that was my first hack. I was able to hack a game that by jumping ahead in the code. Clearly not very well programmed, but that's kind of my first experience. And I've obviously tried my hand at programming in BASIC.
Yeah, those were the days.
Oh, God, yes.
So how do you see Mobiquity evolving over the next couple of years?
Yeah, so right now we're very focused on transforming digital experiences in financial services. So your bank accounts, your loan accounts, your onboarding, all these sorts of aspects of a financial service. We're focused on transforming those experiences for banks and building the right products. The reality is, when you boil that down, it doesn't matter the industry, it doesn't matter the technology. What matters is the customer, because the customer might get a great experience buying that footlong, and now they expect that, hey, why can't I do the same to buy a shirt? And hey, why can't it be the same in terms of applying for a loan or opening up a bank account? So experience is experience, and so we say that customers exist in spaces, not places, in this virtual world. So I think the direction for us is to move more to really own that experience transformation space across any industry and for any digital touch point throughout ASEAN and Asia Pacific, certainly in terms of what I look after for Mobiquity here in Asia-Pac.
Yeah, I know that every time that I'm waiting for a courier to arrive, I sort of think to myself, and I've complained to courier companies, why can I track a pizza in real time, but I can't track my package in real time? I can track it when it arrives at a depot, but what if I want to know if I have time to go to the shops for half an hour because the other guy's still halfway across town and not going to make it to me in time? And so, yeah, we have these expectations that digital has enabled, and then we clearly want to migrate them across to other areas, and not everyone is at the same level yet.
Spot on. And that there is tech debt in real life.
Yeah.
Why isn't DHL, Australia Post, why aren't they providing the same service? They absolutely can. The technology is there. Why not?
Yeah. And look, and I know that if they're carrying a whole truckload of iPads and iPhones, there's reasons why you might not want to be able to publicly track the information in real time. But I'm not talking about public tracking. I'm just talking about me. So yes, tech debt. Now, one of the things that your radar must be talking about is the metaverse and people who are creating online experiences for VR headsets, which aren't quite there yet. AR, we're still waiting for Apple to release the glasses. So what do you think the industry will look like in the 2030s when extended reality glasses and the metaverse should be as commonplace as the smartphones we all use today, and even 6G should be commonplace too?
Yeah, so I'm going to start by saying that I don't think people realize, but we're already in the metaverse. That's my big call.
Yeah.
We're kind of like the analogy of the frog in water, and you turn the heat up. So we've been sold the metaverse for a long time with, as you said, the Google Glass and all the different elements, AR, blockchain, tokens, digital currency. This is just elements of the metaverse that we're getting to be made familiar with. And really, the metaverse is this thing that just is going to exist around us, and we turn it on in a flash. Right now, it's a focus on places. We go to the metaverse, we go to Decentraland, we go to Sandbox. Whereas really, I'm saying is we're kind of already in the metaverse. But if you look at 2030, to answer your question, I think voice is going to be king. And voice is going to be our own personal digital assistant. So we will just, like now Siri, but we will just talk to everything. I won't be typing, I shouldn't be typing into my computer. In fact, there should not be a search bar in 2030. We should be going from browsers to panels. I should be able to minority report things away, or say, open up a browser and pull up my last presentation to the Commonwealth Bank, right, from a business perspective. Or I might be at home and just say, book a restaurant for me. I want to have Spanish with the wife tonight. I want to be there at 7:30, and order a cab. I'm going to need 15 minutes to be ready.
Yeah, that natural language.
Search bars disappear. It's from browsers to panels, and from an organization, contextual utility will be all the rave. I think the other thing to sort of round off on that is, this metaverse thing is going to be it's something that exists. It's kind of this persistent digital veneer, and the other big thing is I think fiat currency will be on its last legs. All payments will be different. Not all, but certainly first world, where we're very, very advanced in digital payments. In fact, let me tell you really quick, an interesting point.
Please.
I'm currently working, and this will interest the listeners, right? Because we always think of this innovation in first world. I'm working with a bank organization in Bhutan, a small country north of India in the Himalayas with 800,000 people. Their vision is that as a tourist, when you go there, there will be no cash. Every engagement, even the small street vendor selling you the local merchandise, you will pay digitally using an app. So this is Bhutan, right? So imagine if Bhutan are doing that, and that's their vision for this year, what does 2030 look like in that regard?
Yeah, absolutely. And that whole vision of the natural language, natural user interface. I mean, we saw that in Star Trek in the 60s. We saw it with The Next Generation, and we see it with, if you've ever watched any of Star Trek Discovery in the 3rd and 4th seasons, when they have the little tracker device there, and you've got these screens that just pop up and you can swipe them out of the way. And, I just can't wait for that to be real.
Yeah. Again, it's possible now. Only tech debt is getting in the way.
That's it. So look, my second last question to you is, what are some of the best pieces of advice that you've ever received in life to help you get where you are today?
Yeah. 2, slow down, look up. Sometimes we're too much in a rush to get somewhere, to achieve something. And sometimes it's better to slow down, have a look, and make sure you're heading in the right direction, and course correct if necessary. So slow down and look up. Actually, that was my mum. And the other bit of advice is, I think, always have a healthy sense of paranoia. And the operative word being healthy. In other words, just when you think you've got everything right, just, did I miss something? Or did something change while I was doing what I was doing? Whether it be in whatever aspect of life, but certainly I look at it from a business perspective, always have a healthy sense of paranoia.
And I think the flip side to that statement or that coin is that always have a healthy sense of curiosity, because if you're always curious about something, then you're going to be curious about if something's going wrong, so you can course correct and make sure that it goes right.
Yeah, and I think that's probably a more positive way. So now when someone asks me what's the best advice, I'm going to say always have a healthy sense of curiosity.
Yeah. Well, that's
So
what I
that
thought you were going to
one's for
say.
you.
So I was fascinated to hear you say paranoid, but emphasize the healthy part of it. Because look, I mean, it's kind of the same thing, just making sure that you're always aware. I mean, when you were saying slow down and look up, I mean, I'm thinking of all the people that are looking on their phones and they're not looking up. You know, if you're looking at your phone all the time, you don't not. I mean, you might be curious about what's happening there, but you've got to be curious about what's happening out there as well, because an oncoming truck can be, pretty life ending. So you got to be aware of everything. So yeah, no, that's
true.
good advice. Yeah. So look, my final question to you is: what is your final message to IT viewers, IT Wire viewers and readers, and to your current and future customers and partners?
Yeah. So, look, my message is to end on the point we just made. Be curious and be bold. There is a lot of solutions out there, and the opportunity is now. Don't be distracted by the shiny yellow bike that technology vendors present to you. Just focus single-mindedly on the experience that you want to create, and that actually differentiates you from the competitions, but is also true to your brand value and brand promise. That's my message to viewers. And what was the other part of that question, Alex?
Oh, well, just it's your message to your future customers and partners. And just also simply to say that, that message of yours, I mean, it's also about always knowing that the journey's never over. You always have to keep on, evolving and iterating and improving that and taking it into account everything that continues happening. But yeah, your message to your future customers and partners as well.
Thank you. And really, to my future customers and partners, is that I unashamedly say that I am focused exclusively on transforming experiences. So if you're an organization that is focused on differentiating through experience, not through technology, then, let's have a conversation and let's see how we can help.
Well, Gustavo Quiroga, the General Manager for Mobiquity in APAC, thank you very much for your time. Thank you for a fascinating discussion, and I hope we can talk again in the future.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you for the opportunity, Alex. Have a great day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.